My wife forgot to delete her browser history. Karen watched me, her skin growing pale. Go wake your parents up, or something bad will happen soon. He screamed, now, now, now! Welcome to the third episode of the series about scary Reddit stories. In these videos, I'm going to present to you those scary stories from Reddit that I find scary and intriguing. Without further ado, let's get started. The first story that I will present to you today is called My Wife Forgot to Delete Her Browser History. I Can't Believe What I Found by the user Genuinely Grim. 4:34 p.m. How can I stop husband from cheating? I had only clicked on the history tab to delete the last thing I'd searched for when I noticed the entry. Hurriedly, I finished zipping up my fly and I stared at it in bewilderment. Amy and I had been almost too careful. We had never so much as looked at one another in my wife's presence, let alone done anything that could have raised suspicion. There was no way she could have known what was going on, even if she looked through my phone. With a heavy heart, I'd forced myself to delete any incriminating photos Amy sent me after I was done with them, and we had a strict call-only policy. Amy was our latest hire, and aside from being great at her job, she excelled in garnering male attention. Everyone loved her. She was strikingly beautiful and uninhibited, to the point where her energy felt almost carnal, sending all morals and restraints out the window. I tried to ignore her at first, even finding excuses to go home early, but eventually her charming giggle got the better of me too. 4:37 p.m. How much does divorce cost? Droplets of sweat sprang out of my forehead. Was my wife planning to divorce me? But why? There was no way she knew about Amy and me. Was there someone else? Was she planning to accuse me of infidelity all while going at it with some lover boy she'd met at her yoga class? 4:39 p.m. Why do humans feel emotions? I pursed my lips. If by some miracle my wife did know about the affair, I couldn't imagine the way she must have been feeling. I woke up late this morning and found a note on the kitchen table saying that she didn't want to wake me up and that she was out doing her Saturday errands. I almost felt compelled to call her and... I flinched as the huge drop of blood landed on the keyboard. What the hell? My first instinct was to look up at the ceiling. Nothing. A strong metallic smell made me come to my senses. I brushed my hand against my face. A bright red smudge sat on my palm. I stared at it, alarmed. I'd never gotten nosebleeds before, aside from the time I got hit in the face with a football in high school. My head raised. I scrambled to my feet and made a dash for the bathroom, my hands cupping my throbbing nose. Once I had managed to stop the bleeding and cleaned myself up, I returned to the computer. 4:44 p.m. Which part of the brain is responsible for love? This was an oddly specific search. I couldn't recall my wife ever being interested in science or biology. I checked the account logged into the browser just in case. Perhaps this was someone else's history altogether. Or maybe we'd been hacked? No, seemed like everything was in order. My wife's smiling face stared back at me from the login window. What was she doing searching for brain parts anyway? 4:49 p.m. What is excerebration? What was excerebration? Some kind of fancy divorce? I'd never heard of this term in my life. I didn't even hesitate before clicking it, eager to find out what my wife was planning for us. I wish I hadn't. As the results came up on the monitor, my stomach lurched and my gag reflex kicked in. The images were graphic enough for my hand to automatically gravitate towards the return button, but a short paragraph in bold caught my eye. An ancient procedure involving chiseling through the bone of the nose in order to scoop out the brain matter. My heart hammering in my chest, I clicked the back button and scanned the rest of the entries. 5:01 p.m. Can a person live without the hypothalamus? 5:05 p.m. Location of the hypothalamus. 5:11 p.m. How much temazepam is safe? My skin scrolled as I read, but I couldn't look away. I was so immersed that I didn't even hear the front door bang. Honey, I'm home. I stared at the wall, too shocked to reply. What was I meant to say? How was I supposed to ask her about all this? "Hello," she called again, her heels clacking towards me. "Oh, hey," I choked, throwing the box of tissues into the drawer. "How was—" "Oh, good," she smiled as she appeared in the doorway. "How are you? You had quite a lot to drink last night." I stammered. "I did?" She studied me as though she wasn't sure whether I was joking or not. What's all this?" I asked, gesturing to the computer screen. She joined me at the desk, frowning at the clammy wood surface. "What?" I pointed at the browsing history, my index finger shaking visibly in the air. "Oh," she flushed, 2 pink spots appearing on her cheeks. "Well, you did say we could try it, so I had to do a little research, you know." "What?" I said we could try what? "Oh," she waved her hand dismissively. "The something, you probably know better." My blood ran cold. "The excerebration." "Karen, what did you do?" But before she could say anything, a splash of blood landed on the carpet. And then another one, and another. Karen watched me, her skin growing pale. What? Suddenly, a small fleshy lump escaped my nostril and rolled down the front of my shirt. We both stared at it in shocked silence. Then my wife screamed, turning on her heel to flee the room, but I caught up to her, pinning her against the wall. "Tell me what the f you did." She tried to fight me, writhing under my grip, but I held on tight. Blood was streaming into my mouth and down my chin, staining both of our clothes. "How can you not remember?" she screeched, trying to elbow me in the ribs. "Don't you remember what you did?" I stared at her panic-stricken face, trying my best to recall any memories from the previous night. "No, what did I do?" You came home after work and you told me you were leaving me for Amy," she sobbed. "You said you didn't want to love her, but you did." I stood there quietly, mulling it over as more pulp splashed onto my stomach. "Ew, we need to call you an ambulance," Karen shrieked, trying to pull away. "What the f is that?" "Then what happened?" I demanded, my heart practically leaping out of my chest. "Tell me what you did." "What the f, John?" she screamed. "We got drunk, okay? We got really wasted, and then you said you knew of a way to fix this, to fix us. You said there is something called hypothalamus in your brain, and if removed, it would stop you from loving Amy." I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. What the hell was she saying? Had she actually attempted to remove a part of my brain? And wait, I whispered. "Who's Amy?" Her expression made me feel foolish for not remembering. I knew that name. Amy. It sounded so familiar, and yet I couldn't for the life of me put my finger on it. "What the f do you mean?" She sounded bewildered. "Amy, the girl you were cheating on me with for 6 months. I don't," I mouthed, releasing my wife and crumpling to the floor. "I don't remember." Karen stared at me, her white blues resembling a massacre, her mouth pressed into a thin line. What's happening to me?" I whispered. She was silent for a moment, but I could see her eyes brimming with tears. "Honey, what if I accidentally hit your hippocampus instead?" "What?" That told me nothing. For the f***'s sake, Karen, I'm not a f***ing encyclopedia. Enlighten me. What the f*** is hippocampus? Nothing would have prepared me for what she said next. "Honey," she sobbed, "you're a doctor. It's the memory part of your brain." The second story that I will present to you today is called "My Parents Had a Toy Skeleton They Named Skelly-san" as a joke. Let's get started. It used to keep me up at night telling me something bad was going to happen. According to my mom, the way the story of Skelly-san's introduction to the family goes is quite mundane. My mom loves dressing up, decorating, and generally celebrating every holiday out there, while my dad is more of a holiday or just a day of work kind of guy. But when they got their first nicer apartment together around Halloween, he brought her the toy as a joke because it was so incredibly silly looking. Since they were patient about starting a family, they used to pick on each other by occasionally saying things like, "You forgot to feed Skelly-san again today, didn't you? I can see his ribs." You know, dumb parent jokes like that. I mean, I guess it's cute. Anyway, when I was born, no, they thankfully didn't name me Skin Daughter. They put it in my room and used to tell me that Skelly-san was my big brother and he was going to keep me safe from the ghouls and goblins of the world. world. We even had a bedtime song about... Anyway, it doesn't matter. Skelly-san is mostly fabric and stuffing, but with some rigid pieces underneath for the bones. He has black shoes and a bow tie of the same color. I can't express to you how silly this toy was. I never played with him directly. He was only ever involved in make-believe in the role of advisor or wise man to the other toys. It is not that my parents told me not to play with him or that he was fragile or anything. I just thought of him as different. I can still feel the way the hair rose on the back of my neck the first time I heard him speak to me. I was 8 years old. It was late at night and I was up a little later than I should have been. My parents had told me to be in bed by 9, but they fell asleep before that, so I stayed up to watch some more TV in my room. It took me a moment to realize the sound had come from my side and not from the speakers in front of me. Go wake your parents up, or something bad will happen soon. I froze and looked to where the sound was coming from. The only thing on my dresser in that direction was Skelly-san. Of course, I didn't assume it was him right away. Hello, I said out loud, clutching my covers tightly. I let go long enough to turn the volume down on the TV and saw Skelly-san's mouth move this time. His voice was calm, deliberate, and forceful. Go wake your parents up, or something bad will happen soon. Being 8, I ran to my parents' room crying. They asked me what was going on, and I told them I had a nightmare. Even at that age, I knew what I had seen wasn't normal, and I was scared to say it out loud and make it real. I got it from my dad. He has always been one to keep his struggles to himself. I slept in my parents' bed that night. The next time it happened was 2 months later. Similarly to last time, I was staying up later than my parents, but unlike last time, I had a cousin spending the night this time. Simon and I were up late, maybe 10, playing video games after a long day at the beach. Simon went to the bathroom and while he was gone, Skelly-san spoke to me again. Go wake your parents up, or something bad will happen soon. This time, I didn't freeze or cry. I knew Simon would be back in a minute and I was more confused than scared this time. What's going to happen? I asked. Skelly-san turned his head towards me and only repeated himself verbatim. Go wake your parents up, or something bad will happen soon. His head snapped back into place as I heard the door swing open and Simon re-entered. Who were you talking to? Simon asked me. Did you hear that? I asked him in surprise. If he had heard Skelly-san talk, maybe I wasn't going crazy after all. I only heard you mumbling, but I didn't hear what you said. Were you yelling at the game? He hadn't seemed to have heard anything specific at all. Skelly-san didn't move or speak for another 6 months. On my 9th birthday, me and all of my friends were going to go to an amusement park. The day before, I was so excited I thought I was going to be sick. I was reading all about the rides, attractions, and food at the park in bed when Skelly-san spoke again. Go wake your parents up, or something bad will happen now. He said the last word so sharply that it shook the windows. I sat up, half terrified and half in disbelief. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could take a breath, he screamed, "Now, now, now!" The shock wave from his voice scattered the dust in my room and almost knocked me off my bed. I took off running. I burst through my mom and dad's door and screamed, "I need help," before I blacked out. I woke up 38 days later in the hospital. They said the tumor was the size of a golf ball and growing. If they hadn't caught it when they did, it would have started putting pressure on my brain and I could have started having hallucinations or even permanent brain damage. The operation was a success and I have never had any serious complications, aside from the 4-inch section of my scalp where the hair won't grow. The doctors insisted my blacking out was unrelated and just a random panic attack. They insisted there wouldn't have been any symptoms at all. My brain was normal and there was no excess pressure anywhere yet. They said normally you can't really tell until it's already causing problems. They said we were so very lucky. They all patted themselves on the back for going through with the CT scans just in case. Skelly-san never spoke to me again. He never moved. He never gave any indication he was anything more than a stuffed toy with a silly backstory. I still keep him around though. He moved with me when I went to college, much to the confusion and amusement of my parents who never got the full story from me. And he lives with me in my first home now. I will introduce him to my kids as their guardian uncle, and he will have a placement in their bedroom when they sleep at night. Because even though it would be really easy for me to dismiss the encounters as hallucinations my doctors were wrong about, there was a reason they took those scans. My dad wouldn't let it go and forced them to get the scans. They argued with him to no end, but he wouldn't back down or explain why he was convinced they needed to be done. When my mom asked him afterwards how could he have known? How could he have seen what the doctors couldn't when he was just some middle manager who had absolutely nothing in the way of medical knowledge? He swore her to secrecy. Mom and I drink wine together though, and to this day has never mentioned it to her or anyone else again. He said, "I know this might sound crazy, but as we were rushing out the door to the hospital, I heard someone shout, 'Make them check her brain,' from her bedroom." I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss my future videos. If you want to take part in my future videos, you can send me your creepy stories and I will present them. Right now you can see all my social media platforms on the screen. You can send your scary story to me on any platform, or you can just leave a comment with your scary story under this video. Again, thank you so much for watching my video and stay safe.